Welcome to QZenith video tutorials. Hello there, welcome to the Parrot Essential course, and in this video we're going to have a discussion on what is GNU-Linux. So let's get started. What is GNU-Linux? Now, GNU-Linux is an operating system built over the years, and thanks to the contributions of many developers around the world, few of its peculiarities will be described here, such as free software. We've got the GNU project. We're going to discuss on the Linux project, and then we're going to discuss on GNU-Linux as well. Now, let us start with the free software. So free software is software that respects the freedom of users and their community. Broadly speaking, it means that users have the freedom to run, copy, distribute, study, modify, and improve the software. And in other words, free software is a question of freedom, not price. So to understand the concept, think of free as free of speech, not free in beer. In English, sometimes in the place of free software, we say libre software, using that Spanish adjective derived from freedom to show that we do not mean that the software is free. So there are four definitions to define free software. So first one, which is known as freedom zero, the freedom to run the program as desired for any purpose. Now we have got freedom one, the freedom to study how the program works and change it to do what you want. Access to the source code is a necessary condition for this. And we have got freedom 2, the third point, which is for the freedom to redistribute the copies. And we have got the freedom 3, which is the fourth one, the freedom to distribute copies of its modified version to third parties. And this allows you to offer the entire community the opportunity to benefit from the modifications. Access to the source code is a necessary condition for this. So a program is a free software. It appropriately grants users all of these freedoms. Otherwise, it is not free. It is said to be proprietary software. And by the way of summary, we could say that free software or liberal software does not necessarily mean that it is free, although in many cases it is. Free software provides four basic freedoms: freedom to run software, freedom to modify and study your code, freedom to redistribute copies of such software, and freedom to distribute copies of modified softwares. And you can read this information at the following link over here. So just go through it and then you can just get all those informations over there on that link. Now, let's start with some history. It's the 70s of the 20th century when a man named Richard Stallman started working at MIT. At this time, it was very common to work with free software. The programmers were free to cooperate with each other and did so quite often. What's more, even computer companies distributed their software freely. And all this changed in the 1980s, and practically all software began to be distributed privately, which means that such software had owners who prohibited cooperation between users. And for this reason, in the face of what seems an injustice, Richard decides to create the GNU project in 1983. And being in 1985 when the Free Software Foundation was founded with the objective of raising funds to help program GNU. So the GNU operating system is a complete Unix compatible free software system. The term GNU comes from GNU is not Unix. It is pronounced in a single syllable, which is known as GNU. Richard Stallman wrote the initial announcement of the GNU project in September 1983. An extended version called the GNU Manifesto was published in September 1985. Now, the name GNU was chosen because it met a few requirements. First of all, it was a recursive acronym for GNU is not Unix. Second, it was a real word. Lastly, it was fun to say or sing. So they decided to make the operating system Unix compatible because the overall design was already tested and portable, and because the compatibility made it easy for Unix users to switch from Unix to GNU. Thus, a Unix-like operating system includes a kernel, compilers, editors, word processors, mail software, graphical interfaces, libraries, games, and many other things. For all this, writing a complete operating system takes a lot of work. At the beginning of 1990, the main components had already been found or programmed except for one, the kernel. So you can just go through this links for more information. Now, let us jump back in history, this time to 1991. Around that time, a Finnish computer science student named Linus Torvalds wanted to create an operating system similar to Minix, which he used at university, but that would work on his computer with 80386 processor. Using the GNU-C compiler, Linus Torvalds soon had a first version of the kernel capable of running on his computer. On August 25th, 1991, he announced this system on Usenet on the comp.os.minix list. His project quickly gained followers, and there were many who joined him and began to develop for said kernel. So, Linus initially released his software under his own license, although he finally chose a GNU GPL license in 1992, in part because the seed tool he had used to compile it was also GPL. And the name of Linux for this kernel was taken months after its publication, since Linus himself had originally wanted to call it Fricks. In fact, in the first version of the kernel, you can see inside the makefile how you called it this way. Finally, Ari Lemming, or maybe Lemke, who was one of the people in charge of the FTP server at the Helsinki University of Technology, placed the files on the server under the Linux project without consulting Linus. Now, Linus did not like this name because he found it too self-centered or selfish. He finally agreed to the name change, and a long time later in an interview, Linus himself commented that it was simply the best name that could have been chosen. So now let us talk about the GNU-Linux. The FSF GNU was developing a kernel called Herd, still under development. This kernel was developing more slowly than they came to think. So before the release of the Linux kernel, it was adopted within the project. So the correct name for the operating system is not Linux, but GNU-Linux. Nowadays, when people talk about Linux, they are really talking about the GNU-Linux. The kernel itself is useless. The kernel is the component that makes the software, and therefore the user able to communicate with the hardware, but it takes more than a kernel to run a computer. It is necessary that there are certain programs in the user pod. These programs may or may not be licensed under the GPL GNU. And for more information, you can follow the link given over there on the slides. So this completes the GNU part. Hope it was informative for you. I will see you on the next video. Thank you for watching, guys.